Hi folks, Seth Leapson here. Thanks for watching my monologue. In these uncertain times, you may be thinking about personal protection. If you are, I urge you to visit my friends at Guns Etc. They'll help you find the perfect protection for yourself and your family, and they can even teach you how to use it. They've been protecting Arizonans for over 33 years, and they stand for the great principles this country was founded upon. Or you can just click on gunsetcetera.com. And if you like my monologues, please subscribe to 960 The Patriots YouTube channel. Welcome back and happy Wednesday, November 25th. We head tomorrow into a great holiday, Thanksgiving. Part of me wanted to write a once great holiday. For this year, unlike years past, it's coming to us with additional stress. A holiday that comes with normal stress, good stress, mind you, but stress has had a lot more weight put on it, given certain state regulations, travel advisories, health advisories, comportment advisories, capacity limits, and the like. The day itself was always a day to think about two important institutions, the two most important, to be grateful for them, family and country. I don't know if there are any two more important things, and this is the holiday that always puts them together, making it in some respects just a bit more meaningful to some than even the 4th of July. It begs the thinking of Aristotle's in his book, The Politics, where he discusses how each institution reinforces and contemplates the other. He writes, not uncontroversially, because man's sense of good and evil, of just and unjust, he forms two institutions, the family and the state. Now, this is where it gets interesting, as Aristotle goes on to write this, quote, "The state is by nature clearly prior to the family and to the individual, since the whole is of necessity prior to the part. For example, if the whole body be destroyed, there will be no foot or hand, except in an equivocal sense, as we might speak of a stone hand, for when destroyed, the hand will be no better than that. But things are defined by their working and power," he continues, "and we ought not to say that they are the same when they no longer have their proper quality, but only that they have the name. The proof that the state is a creation of nature and prior to the individual is that the individual, when isolated, is not self-sufficing, and therefore he is like a part in relation to the whole. But he who is unable to live in society, or who has no need because he is sufficient for himself," Aristotle writes, "must either be a beast or a god. He is no part of the state. A social instinct is implanted in all men by nature, and yet he who first founded the state was the greatest of benefactors, for man, when perfected, is the best of all animals, but when separated from law and justice, is the worst of all animals." Close quote. There's a lot there, isn't there? So we contemplate the kind of country we want in order to raise the kinds of human beings and families we want. It's a good thing for we conservatives to think about all this right now, and especially, too, the part about social instincts implanted in us and how we were not meant to live alone or in isolation. It's not good that man should be alone is, of course, not just Aristotelian, as anyone familiar with Genesis certainly knows. And of course, it's good and important right now after an election that we think about what Aristotle said regarding man being the worst of all animals when separated from law and justice. Just right there, in that one paragraph from the Politics, we have a lot of thinking and contemplating to do. What kind of country do we want so that we can raise the kinds of families we want? None of it can be done by forcing humans into unnatural conditions, namely isolation. And that, with the right views of law and justice, we are the best of animals, and with the wrong, the worst. Might you sense, in looking back over the year, that forced isolation, forced unnatural conditions have put us in an unenviable place where it's led to increased crime, increased self-harm, substance abuse, relapse, suicide, and even, one might add, anarchical violence? Even more, I would add a new and unnatural and retrograde thinking about matters of race, which of course reduces the human condition to another set of unnatural perversions of law and justice. Indeed, the very philosophical basis of slavery is what it reduces us to. In other words, we've lost a lot this year. We've backtracked a lot this year. And I'm not sure it's going to be so easy to redress and fix. And yet, here we are, Thanksgiving. So, of course, I take a day like today to nurture and nourish some private thoughts about my family and how grateful I am to it and to be part of it. But I also take the time to think of the patriotism, the love of this country that Thanksgiving has always represented to me and so many others, especially our military families here who have loved ones fighting for us abroad, and, of course, those loved ones who are stationed and fighting for us abroad. We cannot fully say of ourselves what the English say of themselves, as taken from Shakespeare. For example, this blessed plot, this earth, this realm, this England. But we are a blessed plot and a realm of something very important. Perhaps a shining city on a hill. That was Ronald Reagan's phraseology. It was his because he made it shining. The original phrase from the book of Matthew, of course, is a city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. And, of course, relevant to Thanksgiving, John Winthrop told his Massachusetts Bay colonists aboard the Arbella that they were entering and creating a city on a hill. In his farewell address to the country, and one might say to the world, from the Oval Office, here is how President Ronald Reagan last described his imagery. He said, quote, "I've spoken of the shining city all my life, but I don't know if I ever quite communicated when I saw what I saw when I said it. But in my mind, it was a tall, proud city built on rocks, stronger than oceans, wind-swept, God-blessed, and teeming with people of all kinds, living in harmony and peace, a city with free ports that hummed with commerce and creativity. And if there had to be city walls, the walls had doors, and the doors were open to anyone with the will and the heart to get here. That's how I saw it and see it still." Close quote. But then he went on just a little longer and he said, quote, "And how stands the city on this winter night? More prosperous, more secure, and happier than it was 8 years ago. But more than that, after 200 years, 2 centuries, she still stands strong and true on the granite ridge, and her glow is held steady no matter what storm. And she's still a beacon, still a magnet for all who must have freedom, for all the pilgrims from all the lost places who are hurtling through the darkness toward home." Close quote. Regular listeners of this show know that's how we try and think of and about ourselves. How strong on the granite ridge are we standing? How bright is our light shining right now? As I pointed out as well, it's a curious thing that as we have created so much prosperity at home and abroad, never in the past 3 or so years have we heard so much about socialism or from socialism in this country. Never so positively. Never has it taken such a neutral or promotional hold like it has here recently, with such a blasé response from so many, especially in the Democratic Party. I think we need to worry about it, and I think we need to talk about it. We rested on too many laurels and thought it could not happen here. Well, we have congressmen and senators and major contenders for president celebrating and promoting it. We saw other leaders of the Democratic Party coddling and supporting and seeking the votaries of those congressmen and senators. If we're not careful, it'll grow stronger, though it's pretty strong right now. As I say, stronger and more implanted here than ever before. We need to go back to fundamentals. We put food on our table, clothing on our children, and roofs above our heads because of our industriousness, because we can all hope for and can strive for a positive in our own personal ledgers, a profit of some kind in our own households. We strive for those personal profits through our commerce, through work. And we do so thinking, not knowing but thinking, if we work hard, we'll do okay. Of course, we know not all our efforts are rewarded that way all the time, and governments can step in and stop it too, can't they? High unemployment, though, means layoffs, and too often too little or no work available. So does forced and self-imposed unemployment, something we never thought we'd see. So the question to think about always, but perhaps now more than ever, given our election season, are the conditions our government makes for us helping or hampering all of our chances, all of our success, all of our potential prosperity? Is there a committed emphasis to free enterprise and thus free employment? Or rather, is there a committed emphasis to greater regulation and an ethos of punishment toward profit? A commitment to more shutting down rather than opening up? A commitment to more unnatural isolation and to social interaction? Is our government and are its policies committed to making the poor richer, with our leaders talking up the great engine of economic growth this country can be at its best? Or rather, are our leaders more committed to making the rich poorer, to satisfy some notion of equality that doesn't attempt to raise everyone's standards, but rather attempts to lower the higher standards so that the lower ones are more on par with them? In other words, are we trying to achieve the low by condemning the high, or are we teaching the high in order to raise the low? Are we trying to make more Elon Musks, more Steve Jobs, or rather, are we saying those examples of success are actually anomalous examples of excess, and nobody should either think that achievement is possible here again, and where it exists now it should be taxed more and somehow punished? Those companies, just as two examples, were built from nothing but dreams of average Americans. Well, one American and one who knew it could only be done in America. Today, they employ hundreds of thousands of people directly and indirectly, and they make commerce for hundreds of millions easier. In many cases, they simply make commerce possible. Pick your own company when you think about these things. It doesn't have to be Tesla or Apple. It isn't its success to be scorned, and is it a success that needs to be scorned and further taxed, or does it actually mean something important to a lot of people, such that its operations should be made easier and not harder? We've lost our Lincoln, not just on humanity and equality, but on commerce and industry. Lincoln taught this, and it's nowhere taught in our schools. Not anymore. He put it this, quote, "Property is the fruit of labor. Property is desirable. It is a positive good in the world. That some should be rich shows that others may become rich, and hence is just encouragement to industry and enterprise. Let not him who is houseless pull down the house of another, but let him labor diligently and build one for himself, thus by example assuring that his own home shall be safe from violence when built." Close quote. I'd recommend that be put in every school. It won't be. The point of what I'm thinking about this Thanksgiving is this: how stands our city right now? The question Ronald Reagan asked. Look at what can happen in 4 short years. Great things. And look at what can also be done in opposition. Terrible things to undo the greatness. Turns out it's all pretty fragile. Every good is pretty reversible. With enough support for bad and unjust ideas, they do get reversed and broken. But this plot, this earth, this city, if I may, it's worth saving and fixing. What makes it so great in all our minds is we know it is fixable. American history is a ribbon always unfurling. That's what Ronald Reagan said too, and he's right. I'm an optimist. We had Carter, and then we had Reagan. We were in the lowest of valleys, and then we reached high mountaintops. I think we can do it only by redounding to and rediscovering where we must, what gave us the opportunities for greatness after all. And heading into this holiday, I think about how those possibilities are still before us, infirmly in too many places and in too much thinking, but still before us. Chuck Schumer says first we take Georgia and then we change the world. Deserves a robust response from us. First we take Georgia and then we begin repairing America. I'm Seth Leibson. We'll be right back.